Everybody wanna know just what it is about your loving that's got me hit.
Welcome to the Upbeat Hang. Here we are again with K-Bo.
Amy.
Amy.
Wait a minute, you're dysfunctional Duke.
There's the dysfunction.
Oh, you're right, you're Amy. And if you combine it, you're Damie. That's awesome. If this microphone moves again, folks, I'm telling you, I'm going to kill it. So how are you guys doing tonight?
I'm doing great.
Doing
Duke?
awesome. Doing
Duke?
awesome.
Yeah, what's going on since we spoke last? Anything new?
Wasn't that yesterday?
I think it was 5 minutes ago. But no, nothing really new on this end, at least with me. Believe it or else, I have a gig coming up, which is almost hard to believe.
Really?
Yeah, have a very, very small outside socially distanced party, which I don't know what that's going to be like, but very, very pequeño, very small party. So I'm looking
Social
forward
distance conversation. So, how you doing?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm doing good.
I can't wait for the confidentiality is going to be at the all-time high. So what'd you say? What? You didn't do what? Everything's good. Amy, what's new with you? There's got to be something new. How's school?
School's going well. The kids are doing well.
When is school out for you?
Not until the end of June.
That's
So we've
torture.
got a little bit.
That's torture. That's terrible. That's awful. Well, wait a
It's
minute. Wait a minute, though. Can't the kids cut school?
So here's the deal, okay? Here's the teacher, and then you've got the three kids. You want to expel one of them. You want to suspend another one.
And fire
And
the
then-
teacher.
And fire the teacher.
Now, do you give out hall passes or no?
No.
They don't need
Actually, they don't. They're okay. You know what? They're doing very well, actually, the three of them. They're working hard, so
Are any of them
I'm
close
proud
to
of them.
failing?
heck no. This teacher will not allow that. No way. But in all honesty, I mean, here we are. We're in the middle of May. The weather's getting nice, so we will be doing our learning poolside shortly, and we will enjoy that very much.
Aquatic studies is awesome.
Absolutely.
And my friend
That-
and my friend Duke were, not to interrupt you, Amy, go ahead.
I just want to make a brief mention that May is a big birthday month, so I'd like to, if you're okay with it, wish our very own Ken and his daughter happy birthday.
Oh, thank you.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Happy birthday. And my
To the
daughter,
Bows.
Sarah, it will be
And
her
happy
birthday.
Sarah.
Happy birthday, Sarah.
Thank you. I won't mention that it's my birthday too, though.
When is your birthday?
My birthday is May 24th.
Oh, it didn't happen yet, but happy advanced birthday.
Well, thank
Actually,
you.
Duke, there is a birthday today that if you do know who it is. Speaking of dysfunctional, no, I'm only kidding. My bass player, Greg Felice, is having a birthday today.
Oh, well,
we'll
happy
wish
birthday.
him a happy birthday.
Yes.
Happy birthday.
So, Duke, we're approaching Memorial Day. Any plans, anything coming up? Or the weather's been here in New Jersey and the East Coast, folks, been okay. Would you agree with that, Duke? It's been okay. Not
I
so
can't
far.
complain, you know.
Could be a little warmer, but how is everything as we get ready to the hardcore summer months? How's everything for you? Anything new? Anything coming up?
There are no gigs for me. I honestly don't expect to be playing for months because
Probably true.
you're in a unique situation where you do a duo with an acoustic guitar player. You know, I'm not in that situation. None of the situations I play with, you know, me and a guitar player. So I probably won't be playing for months. How about you, Amy? Do you have any gigs coming up?
I do, actually, this coming Saturday. Again, a small backyard type party. One of our, also in a duo, and one of the venues had actually contacted me yesterday to say that they're hoping to open and get us there within the next couple of weeks, which is actually an every week gig. So I'm hoping
Nice.
that comes through. Yeah, I miss it.
Well, Duke, you missed it. You played more than anybody, so I'm sure you miss it like crazy.
I do, but I play every day. So I'm enjoying, I'm really, you know, studying. So I'm enjoying it a lot.
Now,
that's good.
now, before we get into what we want to talk about, what do you? Because you're always studying interesting stuff. What are you studying? Can you share?
I'm teaching myself a hand technique my left hand was never good at. And I can do it pretty good with my right, but my left hand was always so bad at it. I'm right-handed. But I try to lead, or at least play my hi-hat and ride cymbal with my left hand, playing the way that Joe Morello taught me, for years and years and years, trying to learn a completely different motion with your hand, for me, has been a struggle. It's been a struggle. But I'm seeing progress, and, just stay the course. It'll happen,
Well, anytime, but be fair to yourself. Anytime, like if you try and change your golf swing, your tennis swing, that's a big deal if you start monkeying around with the mechanics. So that's hard to do. So I applaud you for that. Amy, the one thing I wanted to tell you I was hoping to have done this summer that I'm not going to get a chance to do was spend a lot more time doing things in the city. And honestly, one of the things on my list was I've only been to one. I wanted to really go see a Broadway show. Now have you seen? I assume have you both seen a lot of Broadway shows, or?
I personally have seen several Broadway shows. I grew up in New York, so to me that was just the best entertainment around.
Now, can you tell us, because I've heard so much about Cats on the Smooth Surface, Phantom of the Opera, Lion King. There's so many great ones.
You mean Cats?
I say Cats on a Smooth Surface, isn't that? Or is that the band?
That was a local band, yes.
Oh, local band. See, there you go. The cover circuit. Here we go. So anyways, Cats.
Right.
But what are some of your favorite shows that you could tell us about? Because I heard so many of these great names.
Oh, so many of them are great, but I'm a huge fan of Les Mis, Les Miserables. Big fan of the more recent ones. What they're starting to do is cover artists or bands of our time, where they tell the story from beginning to end. And those are becoming my favorites. They're very interesting. Jersey Boys, The Bruce Show. But my favorite of all of those, that style, is Ain't Too Proud.
Ain't Too Proud. What is that about?
Got it. Well, the song Ain't Too Proud to Beg, right?
Right. Yep.
Okay. It's the story of the Temptations, Motown era.
Now, Duke, I know you're a Motown, you're a Temptations guy, right?
Absolutely.
Now, what do you like about them? What do you like? They're a great group, obviously, but what do you like about them?
Well, I love the transition from the early style of music that they had, which was very similar to the Contours before, all the way to the psychedelic stuff, with Papa Was a Rolling Stone and,
good song.
I don't know, that later genre that was, it was adventurous, it wasn't just about, harmony.
And what is Duke, what is your favorite, if you have a favorite Temptation song, which one is it? Do you have one?
No, there's too many, it depends on the millisecond,
Amy, let me ask you if you happen to know, because I don't know. I'm going to assume what is their most popular song, The Temptations? Or they're best known for?
I think probably My Girl. Right? Would you say so, Duke?
Could be.
My Girl's a big one.
Yeah, could be My Girl.
So, Amy, if we had the chance to have someone who was in a play that's on Broadway who plays a member of the Temptations, you'd be happy with that. You'd be thrilled, right, Duke? You same?
I'm stoked that we got one.
We have one. Well, let the folks know who's coming on. What are you talking about?
Well, how lucky are we? We have Jarvis B. Manning Jr. coming on the show
in the
today.
House. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
He is absurdly talented. He's an incredible athlete, and it blows me away that he was not even interested or, had a thought about becoming a performer up until late in high school. It blows me away.
Yeah. Yep. It's incredible. It truly is. It's like he didn't realize that he had the gift until he was actually right there. And that to me is amazing.
Yeah.
Well, and also if you research the man's background, and there's a lot to read, there's a lot you're going to see. He is a singer, he's a dancer, he's a performer, he's a composer, he writes. I'm sure he's going to tell us about that. And even some photography and some different dabbling in the arts. And when he dabbles. He's pretty good. He's actually very good. So
the music that you heard coming into the show was his song Sugarfoot.
Crazy.
He's a big funkster.
Awesome one.
Well, I would probably, I don't know as much about the Temptations probably as you both, but I would love to hear them. So, Amy, can we bring them on?
Absolutely. Let's welcome to the show Jarvis B. Manning Jr. We have the triple threat, as we call it in the theater world. Jarvis B. Manning Jr. Welcome him
welcome.
to the Upbeat Hang. Yeah.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm
Welcome,
excited
Jarvis.
to be here.
Welcome,
Hey,
welcome.
Thank you.
Man, you've got real nice resonance to your voice. Did you ever do voiceover work?
Actually, that's the plan now. So I've kind of been playing
Okay.
around now with some setups and things. So we're going to see what happens. If anybody needs a Southern voice out there, I'm here.
How's your
There you
accents?
go.
You have good accents?
Southern.
That's it?
Period. That's it. That's where the max is. I'll try
Jarvis,
other things. And they're like,
Jarvis,
yeah,
do
no.
some marketing. Let's hear what you got. What does it sound like?
No. It's going to all be the same. Literally, one of my friends had me do a children's theater, and I was supposed to be this African lion, like a hand puppet thing. It was like in high school. And I sounded like a Southern Jamaican African lion. It was bad. It was all bad.
So you grew up in Louisiana, right?
Houston, Texas, actually. So all my family is in Louisiana, but I grew up in Houston, Texas, born and raised. And my
okay.
mom and dad are from small towns in Louisiana. So I
Okay.
spent most of my time out there in the country.
What
That's
did your
awesome.
parents do?
So my mom is a teacher. She started off doing early childhood development. So she started with Head Start and different things like that. But now she works in an elementary school as a math, computer, and reading specialist. And my dad has his own plumbing company in Louisiana called Reasonable Plumbing and Repair Company. So if you need anything fixed in the Louisiana area, call my father.
There you
Jarvis,
go.
Jarvis, if I have plumbing problems in Louisiana, he's the man.
Yeah, that's the man to call. Yeah.
Absolutely. So how did your family wind up in Louisiana, but you were raised in Houston? How did that all happen?
So my mom's from Greensburg, Louisiana, which is a small town in between Baton Rouge and New Orleans. And my dad is from Plain Dealing, which is on the outskirts of Shreveport, Louisiana. So all the summer times we would be in Louisiana with their family all the time. So we would go back and forth. But after we left, after Hurricane Katrina actually hit in Louisiana, my dad came back from Afghanistan and went to help with FEMA in New Orleans. So he started to volunteer out there at first, and then he started to work with a different contracting company out there. And my mom was in Houston waiting for my father to come back, but he took so much time in New Orleans trying to repair. She decided to move everything from Houston to Louisiana to be with him. So they kind of had to make that switch over.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So you said, I'm just curious, you mentioned Afghanistan.
Yeah.
So which branch of the military are we talking about here?
Neither. So my dad, he is a big time like worker, and he found out about KBR over in Afghanistan. They were doing a lot of contracting work on the bases. So he ended up going over there to help as a supervisor, and he loved it. He actually ended up having somebody commit suicide early on in the process. I don't know if it was his roommate or one of his friends committed suicide early on the base because there was so much going on out there, as you all know. And so he was there for maybe 2 years. And when he came back to New Orleans amidst Katrina, he said that it was more dangerous in New Orleans than it was in Afghanistan.
Wow.
Wow.
Crazy.
I thought it was amazing.
Crazy.
And he loves New Orleans. And so for him to say that, it was crazy because everybody was kind of like trying to come back in, kind of fighting for territory and still trying to figure out what was going to happen. So it's kind of cool to hear like those stories and see that people would think Afghanistan would have been the more worst off. But in fact, it was actually New Orleans, which
Wow.
is crazy to me.
Sure is.
So let's test that love.
Yeah.
Are we talking Saints? Or are we talking Texans?
Oh, Saints all day.
All right.
All day. Like all day. We root for the Saints through and through. And my dad and mom now are big time tailgaters now. They have a big RV and they go to New Orleans all the time for all the games. Well, for most of the games. And they just love to like hang out and eat and drink and laugh and talk noise and then drive back to Baton Rouge and just sit there again and work.
Now,
Now,
are you,
for Dad and your family, you must have done Mardi Gras, right?
Oh, you know what? No, we only did Mardi Gras like a couple of times. We would always go to New Orleans for Bayou Classic. So that was our Mardi Gras growing up. So that was Grambling State University and Southern University, which is where all my family went. So we would go there. It was a big family to do thing. And then when we got older, we were able to kind of go out to the Mardi Gras festivities in Plaquemine, Louisiana, which is a more family oriented vibe versus New Orleans, which is a free for all, you know.
And do hold on 1 second. I have to know this, Jarvis.
Yeah.
If I'm getting jambalaya in New Jersey, does it even resemble Louisiana?
No, I despise seeing signs that say Cajun cooking. I'm like, no, it's not here. It's not possible. There was a place in Manhattan. I don't want to call their store out because it's no longer available, but they had beads all in the window and they had signs and like the little lays for the neck. But I was like, it's not it. I don't care what you say. But there are some places though that have good food downtown in Manhattan. One is called The Boil, and there's another one, I forgot the name of it, but they have crawfish, which blew my mind. I was like, this can't be real. And it is. And it's actually good, but it's not, you can't compare the two though. You can't. Yeah.
So you grew up in, I guess, the suburbs of Houston?
Yeah. So we grew up on the southeast side of Houston, which is about 10 minutes away from Hobby Airport. So that's kind of a little view for you. But we grew up in the area at first where there was nothing around us but like a corner store here and there. But now there's like a movie theater in the area. There's a school coming up around the street. There's like a donut shop coming up. There's a Target down the street from us now. But growing up, we had nothing but the corner store. And there were like cows down the street because people are always like, did you have cows in Houston? I'm like, no, but we had some down the street from us. So we did have a little country patch of land out there.
So it was just, it was country living. It was fields and pastures and
all that good stuff. But we also had the city in Houston. But when we would go to Louisiana, just country. It was only country. Like my grandfather has a bunch of land on my mom's side. And then on my dad's side, most of the family stays in a small compound and they have a bunch of land. So we would run around and get injured and get stitches and things out there all the time. Always like damaging things and tearing things down. So we were always running around, no shoes, no socks.
Did you have a lot of siblings?
So I have one sister, but my cousins were like my siblings growing up because there were so many of us. And wherever, like if there was a trip somewhere, it would always be about 15 first and second cousins that would go on the trip at minimum.
That's fun.
So we were always in a big group of people all the time. So there was no fights. Nobody ever wanted to fight us because we were like, all right, come on. What do you want to do? Yeah, never fights.
That's quite a lineup you had there.
Yeah.
So living in kind of the suburbs, how did you get involved in the theater life?
So I didn't do any of that until my junior year, I think it was, in high school. Because growing up in the South, it was sports and marching band where I grew up. So I ran track, played basketball, football, and I also was in a marching band. That's what I love to do. I love track and I love marching band. And it wasn't until I was forced to go to the Performing Arts High School in Houston because they had the best academics and they had the best art department. So it was, in order to graduate from our school, we had to have a arts diploma and then a regular diploma as well.
Wow.
And so my mom thought it would be a great challenge for me to go to that hard high school. So I got there and majored in classical voice first for the entire time, actually. But then there was an all-school musical that kids were auditioning for, and people were like, you shouldn't audition for the dance department if you can't dance. You shouldn't. It should only be the dance department auditioning for the all-school musical dance department. So I heard that, and I was like, I'm going to audition for the dance department in the all-school musical. And I did that, and I ended up liking it. And then my senior year, I liked it again. And I was like, should I keep doing this? And then I decided to go and major in it. And my family was not having it at all. My dad and my mom were like, why? What is that? What does theater mean? Like nobody knew in my family, like, what is that about? So it was a last minute choice. So I started very late. And now,
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, Jarvis, let me ask you. Let's fast forward to your career to 2020, which is where we're at now.
Yeah.
And obviously everything changed with the NBA shutting down.
Yeah.
What was your first reaction when you found out that Broadway may be shutting down, and bring it up to today where they've announced they won't be open for summer? Obviously you were disappointed, but can you be more explicit? How did you feel about that?
Yeah. So when they actually called us that Thursday morning and said, hey, y'all, you're going to see a release soon, but we're not going to have a show this evening, my first thought was, let me go get my plants out of my dressing room, because I felt like it was going to be a long time. So they said, okay, guys, you have 2 or 3 hours it was to get into the theater. So once I grabbed my things and got back home, I was actually able to sit down and think about it. And I couldn't get frustrated because I kind of grew up in the family of you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. So always live in that moment and take that moment and that day. So I didn't want to stress myself out about that because I knew I had to get ready to move. So my first thought was stay healthy, get ready to move, do that move. Once you get over there, you can finally have the time to think and like release. My releasing moment was me realizing that nobody actually knows. They tried to have a meeting with us and tell us like, hey, this is what may happen soon. But nobody really knows what may happen. I've been hearing some concerts are canceled until like October 2021. So nobody really knows what's really going to happen. So I'm just really riding the boat out because I don't want to stress about things that I can't change anyways, you know?
So as of right now, then, what's your understanding? Is it to the summer? Do you think it might be beyond, or you don't know?
They're hoping for September, which is not going to happen. We all know that. So they're hoping for September, and then they're possibly shooting for October, November. But they were thinking that maybe January may be the actual start. And there's so much that goes on behind the mind of Broadway that we don't necessarily know what would happen. And it doesn't have to do with the fact that your show may have been a hit before the virus hit. It just means that there's politics that happens within theater. There's the theater owners that have to think about what's going to be best for their theater when the theater opens back up. The producers have to think about their money because I think they are still paying rent, I think, as the theater sits. So they have to think about all those things as time goes on. So we shall see. I'm optimistic as well. So I'm hoping that we get to go back into the theater and perform. Right, fingers crossed. They're thinking about other options for possibly changing around things in the theater, possibly doing like the temperature checks, but they don't know any of these things. So it's a bunch of, we might, or we could possibly, or maybe we should. So there's no real information. So I'm just over here eating my snacks and stretching and trying to stay as productive as possible, you know? Yeah.
You have, I'll put some pictures up so people can see you have an amazing physique.
Oh, thank you, man.
What are you doing during this time to like work out? You can't go to the gym.
I gained about 20 pounds during this break. So thank you for that compliment. That gives me a little dry. So the first 3 weeks, I gave myself time to kind of sit back and do the things that I can't do as a working artist, like eat ice cream all the time. And I have an ice cream maker and I like to bake as well. So I made that first week, I made 3 cobblers within that first week and ate all 3 cobblers within that first week. That next week I made 2 cobblers and I ate them all.
You are a foodie. Week. If you follow Jarvis on Instagram, you'll see he is a foodie.
I love food. So this was dangerous at first. I had to take a moment and be like, hey, you got to stop. And it took me to be like, I was laying down on the floor and I was watching TV and I fell asleep. And then I woke up and usually I could just come up like this. But this particular day, I could not come up. So I tried to come up and I was like, so I had to adjust myself. And I thought that day, hey, you have to go ahead and start exercising. So now I made a schedule for myself to make sure that I got up in the morning and stretched and meditated, prayed, and then I would start my day. So at first I started off by doing workout videos online and then yoga the next day and then another workout video and then yoga the next day. But now I'm running again. And the first time I went running, I wore a mask, a fabric mask, and that's not the safest thing. I found that out early on because I was like dying because it was going in my nose and covering my mouth at the same time. So I've learned things as time is going on. So now I'm starting to exercise and now I'm starting to eat healthier and to make sure I don't buy the lemon Oreos too often from the store. So,
oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
So during when we don't have the virus going on, do you just dance in order to stay in such great shape?
No, I go to the gym often, actually. And I'm a big fan of jump roping before the show, just to kind of get my breath moving. Because we do a lot of movement on stage. What else do I do? I do kickboxing often as well. I love kickboxing. Kind of get the frustration out and then also get extremely fit from that as well.
Yeah.
I always make sure that I try my best not to eat sweets throughout the week because of the phlegm that builds up when you sing. So I have a cheat day on Sunday where I can like eat whatever I want to, which is bad for me because I eat like 4 pints of Talenti ice cream gelato. So I'm working on things. So this time is my time to really figure out how to do this properly. And it's been fun. And thank y'all for the physique compliments because I promise you, it's been a journey. It's been a journey.
So Jarvis, I mentioned dancing. Do you associate yourself as being more of a singer or a dancer?
I've had more training as a singer, so I always say singer, but some people always assume that I'm a dancer first, which is great. I'm like, great, until they ask me to do something that requires like for real technique, because I can trick you all day when it comes to stylized dancing, but when it comes to like technique, it's not my gift. But singing, gotcha. I've had so many like experiences singing and vocal experiences where I can maneuver myself and kind of figure out how to work in different genres of music.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's assume, Jarvis, that this is, and this goes for everybody, let's assume this is a prolonged absence from what we normally do.
Yeah.
And everyone's different. And you seem like such a creative, energetic young man.
Yeah.
What are you going to do to stay mentally sharp and mentally prepared through
Nice.
this downtime? What are you going to do?
Nice. So I've given myself some assignments, actually. I have 2 friends that I'm working on a podcast with, which is exciting to do this right now because I'm like, okay, let me get my little mic and practice this stuff. But I'm also thinking about starting to learn languages now. My niece is 2 years old, and she's mixed with a lot of different things. So she's starting to learn different languages already. And I want to be able to communicate with her in different languages to push her and also to push my old behind to learn another language. I'm also reading a lot more often and listening to podcasts a lot more often that are things that I wouldn't necessarily do. I'm listening to a lot of audiobooks right now. Also looking at other opportunities because you just never know. We don't know what's going to happen. So I'm looking at other options of things to do. I grew up on a plumbing truck with my dad. So I'm, I can go back home and work with him if I wanted to, if I want to. So I'm finding things to do because it's very important to keep your mind sharp at this time because you can easily get depressed. You can easily sit around and watch Netflix only because I don't think that's a bad thing. But I do think at this time we have to build and we have to stay creative and we have to stay upon the negative things that are going on out here. So I've also been writing. I've been talking to our writer from Ain't Too Proud, Dominique Morrisseau, who's been encouraging as well. So it's been a time to kind of like reach out to people and see what they're doing and then take from them if I want to, or just things that I want to do. I have so much time now that I can create, I can learn. I have time. There's no excuses now. I can't be busy. How?
Right.
So I have time.
And as a follow-up, what do you like writing? Tell us what you like.
Say it again.
What do you like writing? And what is your style of writing?
So I love writing for music. I love writing funk. That's my favorite genre of music and soul. But for writing now, I just started to dive back into creative writing because my mom was like, you used to love creating writing as a kid. And I was like, you're right. I started to write a play a while back, and it's dealing with racism and how racism is taught. But it's also dealing with Alzheimer's because my grandmother is now going through Alzheimer's. Oh. And it's been a battle and it's been a challenge to kind of figure out where she's going and how she's going. But it's also been extremely interesting to see what she remembers and what she doesn't remember, to see what kind of a person she is by the things that kind of affected her the most. I remember once I raked her yard, and raking her yard, that sounds like a small thing, but they have like land. So I raked like maybe in the front yard, maybe like 5 acres of exactly. So I was really like raking. My hands were blistered. It was real bad, but my grandmother remembers that. So she always refers to me as a grandkid. But anybody else who comes to her and is like, hey, grandma, she's like, I have no grandkids. And then when I show up, she's like, hey, my grandbaby. So it's amazing to see where her mind is. It's like, if you've done for her, she remembers you. If you have not done for her, she hasn't remembered you. So it's been a battle to kind of like learn these things from her. So it's been fun to kind of write that. It's a moment of counseling for me, a therapy moment. So that's been fun. And also just to kind of like try to create things that haven't been done, which has been fun and hard as hell, because you also want to make sure that you're writing something that people are able to digest. So that's been fun. And I'm not the biggest literature nerd, so me writing is just me writing how I feel. So I'm not sitting here with the best commas and grammatical, like none of that. I'm just here just literally writing how I feel and what I want to say and what I feel like people are saying as well. And with that, I've been watching a lot of interviews with August Wilson, and watching how he wrote and how he prepared. And that's been very, very cool to do as well. Yeah. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask with regard to, I mean, you've been in Motown, the musical, you've been in Ain't Too Proud, you've had Stevie Wonder come see you, you've had Dennis Edwards, you've had all these, Natalie Cole, Bootsy Collins, you know, was there any point where you were like, is this really happening? You know?
Yes.
Like
often actually. We were in California with Motown, and the legendary Berry Gordy, who was with us all the time throughout Motown, invited us over to his home in Bel Air to come eat.
Wow.
So we were like, okay, cool. But it was very like, okay, you can only come over here for 2 hours. That's what his assistant told us, only 2 hours. When we came on the bus, we had to stop at a certain point and get out of the bus and walk up this long hill to the top of Bel Air where Berry Gordy lives. Amongst all these rich people, he lives above all of them, which I thought was amazing. Wow. And we were able to go into just the guest area, which was huge. So it was the area where we found out the Jackson 5 stayed. Rick James stayed when he would come. Tina Marie stayed over there when she came. So we were able to walk around and sit in the living room. We got to see the game room where Michael Jackson would play all the time as a kid. We got to sit by the pool, and we were sitting around watching everybody. And I remember walking down the hill from the little golf course that he has on the property. And we were about to say grace for the meal. And I remember somebody saying, Smooth, wait for me. Smooth, wait for me. And I was like, who is that? And I looked back, and it's Smokey Robinson running up behind me.
Wow.
He's like, hold on, man. I'm calling you Smooth. You didn't want to stop. What's going on? He put his arm around my neck.
Wow.
I was like, yeah, man, your name is Smooth from now on. And he just started telling me stories. And I was sitting there like, what in the hell? I can smell Smokey Robinson right now. So just to be a part of them.
Oh, my God.
Berry Gordy would always tell us, like, I want y'all to understand that you are now a part of the Motown legacy. And the first time he said that, I was floored, because to hear the man say that thing made it real. Because I told my mom and dad, I was like, yes, I'm officially part of the history of Motown beforehand. But to have Berry Gordy say it, it meant something completely different. So that's one of those moments where I was like, yo, we are here. Like, we're with these people who paved the way, who changed history, who did so many things for people. And I thought it was so cool to be a part of it and to be there with him. Yeah.
So awesome.
Yeah, so amazing.
So would you say that he was the biggest the celebrity that you've ever been in contact with?
No, we did meet Oprah now, so I can't, it's hard to, Berry Gordy has done way more than Oprah, too. But Oprah is kind of, she's huge.
Stevie Wonder's pretty big too.
Stevie Wonder's huge. Like, these people are huge. So meeting them all has been crazy. And funny, Otis Williams with our show has been so amazing, and he's so normal that you kind of forget. And I remember him being at the lunch that day at Berry Gordy's house, and he was sitting by himself. And I walked over and I was like, I'm sorry to bother you, but are you Otis Williams? And he was like, yeah, young man, sit down. And I just sat down and I was like, just talk. I'm not one of those, like, I grew up with my grandfather and my grandmother, and they would always kind of give me all this wisdom. And I was always the kid to kind of sit there and listen in versus like badger them. I just like to sit there and listen, because I feel like sometimes if I interjected, they will stop. And I don't want them to stop. I just want them to feed me things. So to sit with Otis Williams and all these people and have them really talk versus them telling me like basic stories that you can see on TV, it's amazing. It was amazing. Yeah.
Wow, that's so incredible.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It really is. So getting back to like the Broadway stage or even just national tours, was it difficult for you to like get in? You know what I mean?
Yeah, actually. So my first show out of school was Pinocchio. So I played Candlewick, who was the little boy who turned into the donkey. So yes, I played a donkey in my life. So I ended up taking that job originally because they were going to give me a passport. I was like, yeah, a free passport? I'm taking this job. So that was my first tour. And then after that, I worked at a lot of different regional theaters. I got most of my equity points from Beef and Board's Dinner Theater in Indianapolis, which is a great place. They fed me all the time. They gave me a car. I had my own place out there. I called it my third home. But after that, I did a cruise ship. And being on the cruise ship, it was great money. But I realized early on the cruise ship hustle that it was going to be a moment of me possibly getting stuck, because it was so much money and it was so easy just to roll over and stick with the company because they were like, okay, you're here now, so stay here. But I knew I wanted more. Motown was the first time I was actually able to be seen for real in a union room. So getting into that room was hard. I had to fight to get in. I had to fight to stay in that room. So when I got in finally and got that equity card, I was like, I have to fight. And I went through so much. Then I had to fight again to get into Ain't Too Proud. So I think I've become that actor who knows that he wants something, and I will come knock on the door and walk into the room uninvited. I'm that guy. I'm like, hey, how y'all doing? Auditions today? I'll be there. So if I wanted enough, it took a while to do that. But after a while, I was like, look, I know you want to see me. You just don't know you want to see me at this point. But I know that you want to see me for this role. So
right. That's right.
Yeah. So it's a journey for sure. And it's a different journey for different people. And some people, it was easier for them to get into the room as a non-union member. But for me, it was a hard fight. And so now that I'm in, I'm like, hey, see me, please.
Good for you.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's wonderful.
Thank
Jarvis, for people who have not been to Broadway or haven't been on it that much, can you talk about, as the actor versus the singer, what's the difference if you're in a show where it might be more dramatic and we're not looking at a character? Everyone knows who the Temptations are, so we know what to see. We know that in Titanic, the ship hits an iceberg. It's not gonna go to Bermuda or somewhere else. So knowing that if you're doing something maybe like Lion King, where it's not pinned down to one character that you have to emulate, talk about the difference in the types of shows you would do where it's based off of a real life character as opposed to someone you might have more ad lib with.
Nice. So it's kind of the same thing. It's the same practice you have to do, in my opinion. I feel we were always taught to go by the book and what did you study and how did you learn? But working with Dominique Morris, so she was able to tell us to make space for your ancestors in everything that you do. So she said it'll be easier and freer for you to actually do it. For instance, me playing Al Bryant, the first original lead Temptation, when I stepped into the role, there was no information out there for Al Bryant. So I just had to read over the script and see how I would feel as a person who started this group and then was kicked out because I had a moment of anger. So I had to battle that and figure out what would happen. And because if you're honest with a character or a role, it will be honest on stage. And so for roles like Lion King, although they are animals, you have to know that there's a story behind it. Like Simba is looking for his father who is no longer there. That's a deep story, although it's told by a man with a lion head on his head. There's still powerful meaning behind these things. Pinocchio had a powerful meaning behind it as well. So there's things that we can all relate to make these characters real for us. But it's a definite challenge for a show like The Temptations, where you have people that are alive and people who were affected by them and people who are their family members who come to see a show and they say, oh, no, that's not right. Or they tell you, oh, that's great. For instance, the young man who plays Melvin in our show, he's never met Melvin before in his life. He's from Detroit, born and raised Juwan Jackson. He did Melvin in Motown, and then he did Ain't Too Proud as Melvin again on Broadway. And Melvin's widow and Melvin's daughter came to see the show, and they walked backstage and they saw him and they sobbed. They sobbed for 30 plus minutes of just crying and hugging him. Wow. And they told him, they said they don't know how it happened, but they were like, you're possessed by Melvin.
Wow.
So your mannerisms, the way you hold yourself on stage, the way you're dancing, the way you're laughing and smiling at different parts, that's Melvin. So to have a family come see you in a role like that and then be like, you are my father, you are my husband. And they give him old stuff from Melvin. He has a plaque that Melvin won years ago that the family gave to him and said, hey, This is for you now. It's no longer for us to hold on to. You Are Melvin, here is something that Melvin earned years ago.
That's
and
amazing.
I thought that was so amazing. So you have those
Really?
moments of having the reward of being like, hey, you're doing a real person, but you're also doing a really good job at being this real person. So that's the major pro to playing a show or playing a role of people that people know. And people
Yeah.
know the Temptations. So they're like, okay, y'all did some great dancing up there. The Temptations didn't do that, but you guys are doing great. So that's been fun to listen to. And people have stories about the Temptations coming to see their show and how their school was integrated, but was not integrated. And so when the Temptations got there, they wouldn't perform until they pulled their rope, and then they were able to perform. So to hear those stories from people who actually lived it has been amazing. It's such a reward
Yeah.
as well. Yeah.
So what did you find, talking about your character, Al Bryant, what did you find was the most difficult thing to emulate or to capture?
His anger. Talking to Mr. Williams, I was telling him that it was tough to come from nowhere because there's a scene where I have to punch Paul Williams in the face with a bottle. He actually hit him in the head with a bottle twice, but they did not put it that way in the show. And they said, I told him, I was like, look, I get angry out of nowhere. I feel like we were just having a conversation. And then next thing I know, I'm punching Paul. Help me. He was like, what you're doing is perfect. He said there was no warning from Al.
Wow.
Al just went off. When he went off, and the next minute, he'll be happy and fine again.
Wow.
So go. And I was like, okay, well, cool. That has been tough. And it's also been tough to come out and give so much. That's where I connect with Al too, because I give so much in my one little song, Shout, in the show. And then I get taken off stage on a treadmill. And then that's a wrap. And there's no more Al for the rest of the show. And so because of that, I'm a ensemble member, which I love it, but nobody remembers Al. And so I feel like it's my job now to be like, hey, Al was a real person. Al started this thing. Before David came into the picture, Al was there leading. And that's been a tough one because not a lot of people know about Al. And because a lot of people don't know about Al, the ego in the actor is like, hey, but nobody cares. So when I was able to find that, that's been fun. But I also play two characters in the show. So I also play Norman Whitfield, a great producer who produced a lot of great music, a lot of great funk music. And he just comes in and says certain things. And it was a challenge to play Norman in a more calm manner because from everything that I was told about Norman was he was upbeat, excited, and always in your face and flashy. But then they wanted him to be a more calm, sophisticated fighter, more pointed so that him and Al didn't become the same. So that was a journey because I knew so much already about Norman from doing Motown. So it was hard for me to kind of find that truth. But then talking to Dominique Morisseau again, she told me, she was like, hey, think about it like this. You have some fighters that come in your face and they're ready to fight you immediately. But then you have those who are trained to be fighters who come in and they're prepared at any time to fight you, but they're not coming in to fight you. So think about it as that. Norman was always prepared and very calculated. So think about him in that way. And Al was just off the cuff. I'm going to hit you in your head with this bottle 2 times. That was, so that's been the battle of trying to find those two people on stage and then leave them in the theater when I go outside, so that I don't carry all that stuff with me when I leave the space.
Right.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, you have so many people that you've sung, that you've played the part of.
Yeah.
Which person do you think you sound when you sing the most like?
So I played Jackie Wilson for a little while on Motown, and I was able to find a fun balance of playing Jackie vocally. I did not think that I mastered him fully until Berry Gordy. At one point, the guy who played Jackie Wilson on tour ended up getting injured. And so somebody recorded me doing Jackie Wilson and put it on YouTube, I think, and some kind of way it got to Berry Gordy. And Berry Gordy saw it and was like, this is what I want for Jackie Wilson on tour. Because this guy named Eric LaJuan Summers, who passed away last year, originated the role on Broadway. And Eric was Jackie. Like, nobody could take it away from Eric. So when he saw the video, the best compliment I ever gotten from Berry Gordy was, see, we need more performances like Eric on this video. Send this to the people over there on Motown and on the tour so they can see Eric play Jackie, because that's Jackie Wilson. And they were like, actually, that's not Eric, that's Jarvis. And he was like, who is Jarvis? And why is he not playing Jackie Wilson? Because I was only the understudy. So that was the biggest compliment. So in my mind, I wouldn't say Jackie, but Barry Gordy said Jackie. So now I say Jackie. So that's what I go with now. Yeah.
Would you say Billy Gordon is close second?
Ooh wee! Let me tell you, I loved singing that song. I was scared as hell at first. I remember going in an audition the first time and being like, yeah, I can't sing that. And they were like, okay, well, thank you. And I said, okay, well, I'll work on it. And then I came back into the room, and I remember that day thinking, just be a preacher. And I came in with a sweat rag, and I left my heart and soul on the floor. And nice. I remember being in the restroom after that audition, and the director randomly came into the restroom and started to urinate in the urinal beside me, and literally reached over and was like, you fought today. And I was like, this is a life. I don't know if I want to shake your hand. I'm a germaphobe. I was looking at his hand like, bye. You know? So, but I shook his hand and I got the job.
Great.
So yeah.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
So I want to get back to what you were saying about Al.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to see In Too Proud on Broadway. It was just such an entertaining, fantastic show.
Thank you.
And I have to tell you that when you said everybody, you kind of just had a small part. You were an original temptation.
Yeah.
You were memorable.
Thank you.
You did him justice.
Thank you for that.
People, absolutely. People, after seeing the show, they will never forget who he is, because you definitely did the role justice.
Thank you for that. That means a whole lot. I remember going outside of the theater one day in Berkeley, and there was a whole bunch of older ladies standing outside in the courtyard area, and they were like, woo, here's my favorite character. But people always thought I was Eddie. So I was like, you don't know who I am, do you? And they were like, yes, we do. And this older lady turned me around and said, you're Norman Whitfield, and patted me on my butt like 3 times, because Norman Whitfield had to wear a lot of tight pants. And yeah, so I learned early on that people know who I am as Norman because of my butt. So at least I have that, so people will remember me.
I remembered you doing both roles.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I think I may have mentioned that to you in person.
Yeah.
Hey, weren't you him, and weren't you also him? So
my mom didn't even know. My mom was like, so wait, which one were you? And I was like, Mom, come back again, see the show again. And then maybe we can work on some stuff. Yeah.
So you mentioned that your song in the show was Shout.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that, because that's a big hit.
It's a big song, right? First of all, everybody sings it at every wedding, every birthday party. So I remember going into the audition, my final audition for Ain't Too Proud, and thinking it was done. They called me and said, hey, prepare Shout for Wednesday. I think it was on a Monday. No, it was Tuesday. It was Tuesday evening. They called me and told me to prepare Shout for the next day. And I was like, okay, should I just do a small part of the song? And they said, no, the whole song. And everybody knows Shout is a long song. They have their whole intro at the beginning, then they have the whole song, and then they have a whole outro. So I was like, okay, so let me just learn this song. And I remembered listening to the song, and I kept hearing the tambourine, and I was like, let me do something different. I went to what's the name of the instrument store in Times Square? Sam Ash, one of the stores. I went to the store, and I wanted a tambourine, like a handheld tambourine, and they didn't have one. So they had the foot tambourine. So I got that, and I was like, what I'll do is I'll just hide it in my back pocket when I enter the room. So I entered the room, and the guy just started to play. He gave me like the little intro, and he stopped. And I was like, go. And I started singing the beginning of the Shout, the whole section. And when I started to sing, to keep tempo, I pulled my tambourine out of my pocket, and I just started playing it. And that wiped me out from the beginning.
That's awesome.
And then 15 minutes into the song, still going, they started to do the call and response section. And I was like, I'm here. I got it. And nobody else had to sing Shout for their audition. And I was like, oh, so I must have booked it in that day then. Well, good. That's good to hear.
That's wild.
Yeah. So now every day that I sing the song, it just makes me feel so good. I love singing the song. It takes so much out of you, but it's such a joy to sing it. And the audience responds to it in a great way, because it's the first upbeat song for real in our show. So they're kind of sitting back and listening to the story, and then I come in screaming at them. So
right.
it's been such a joy to sing that song. Yeah.
Duke and Ken, tell me you don't want to hear one line of that song right now.
Let's hear it.
I got to hear it.
Let's go from.
Start from wait a minute.
Okay, I'll
Right
start
at
from
the
that part.
beginning.
Let me scoot back a little. Let me turn my gain down a little bit.
Got to hear it.
Okay. Well, you know you make me wanna kick my heels up and throw my hands up and
Shout.
throw my head back and
Shout.
come on now. Don't forget to say you will.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't forget to say yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Hey, instead of
All right.
right.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Woo.
Yeah.
That was sweet.
Thank you
you.
so much.
Hey, please, thank you. Let me turn my game back up on you.
So Jarvis, you would be the perfect person to ask this.
Okay.
Without mentioning the name of the group, I was astonished last year when a very famous group came around, and it's a big band, and I was a little flabbergasted that people were going so crazy about this band, and there was one original member. Everyone else was a substitute. So when you see a band or a group, I should say, that you can't really replace, it's almost like saying you're seeing the Jackson 5 with a different singer. How do you feel when groups like the Temptations or different groups might still be around and they're not the original cast? Do you think there comes a point where they should say, this is not the original anymore?
You know, it's funny to kind of watch, because I've got to watch Otis Williams with his group of the Temptations. What's interesting is you get to see that original member still living out their childhood dream. So that in itself is beautiful to me. When it becomes nobody in the group that's original, it's kind of like you're stealing at this point, because there are people who are out there. There are multiple fake Temptation groups out there that tour and get paid from it. And I think that's a frustrating thing to somebody like Otis, who has built this huge legacy and who has been through the stress of starting that group. And then you have the other Supremes groups that are out there now, but they have Mary Wilson, and she's still out there living her dreams as well. So I think in that aspect, if you have somebody that's still there in the group, I think it's okay. When it becomes nobody in the group and you're just using the title, I think that group needs to stop and go away or start their own title. Because you can also make your own music. You don't have to like take somebody else's shine by taking their name and then trying to go make money from it. So I think there's levels to it. But I do hear what you're saying when you say the originals and then you're not the original anymore. So I think it's important to support that one member of the group or those two members of the group that is still around. But if you have no original anything in your group, just go be a band somewhere. Like, we will support you on that as well. So
Yeah.
So if you take educate us, since you're a student of the Temptations.
Yeah.
In your opinion, in Motown history, what made them so special?
What made them so special is their blend, their harmony, and then how clean they were. And people always say they were clean as far as dance. They were not clean as far as dance. Watching any video of them, they were literally having a good time as young men. As a kid, I remember looking at them and thinking they were like in their 30s, but they were kids having a good time and singing. And they were different from what people expected from young Black men at that time. So Berry Gordy was smart on the packaging of his artists and being like, I had to do this first in order for people to hear you. They're not going to hear you if they see you, unfortunately. So I have to make them hear you first and then allow them to see you. So the Temptations, I think, they had so many great people behind them, choreographers, critiques of people who will come in and teach them how to be humans and how to speak in front of audiences. So I think since they had so many people behind them molding them, they were able to reach so many different people. And I think that's really where their success came, because there were a lot of other great groups out there that can sing great like the Temptations.
Right. And what made them different?
But they didn't have that molding of those people. So I think if they would have had their Berry Gordys and the other people around, they could have gotten far. Because even through Motown, they had other groups in Motown that were not as successful as the Temptations and the Supremes.
Right.
But those were the ones getting the shine time, and they were getting the most attention. So I think, like, the kid who gets the most attention usually is the most successful. So I think if you have that attention and you have the funds and the people behind you, you can get far. So I think that's what made the Temptations a huge success, because they had that attention from those many people.
And just one follow up to that, it's 2020 and you're emulating a group from the 60s.
Yeah.
How do you do that technically? Because you're not using 2020 technology to sound like the 60s, are you?
No. See what Kenny did. Kenny is our music director at our show. What he did was he made sure that he had the same drum heads that they had back in the day. He got the same strings that the bass players had and the guitar players had. So he got that part of it. And he's a big studier of music, period. Kenny is. And what he ended up doing was getting a lot of musicians who loved music, who knew that style of music. And he brought them on because he knew that he could trust them. And so they have that down packed. And with Dominique Morisseau being in the room with us, she made sure that we knew the history of the people, knew the history of the time as well. We had a big dramaturgy session, which is where you sit down and you basically get this big packet of work and you read from top to bottom like you used to do in class. They call on you to read a paragraph, and you're reading about snacks of the time. You're reading about the news of the time, what was the trend as far as clothing goes. So we had to study those things to kind of get into the realm of the artist, because we can't be the actual artist, but we can study to know what made these artists perform the way they did, and what made these artists look the way they did and presented themselves. And then we also have a great team behind us that did choreography, and I feel like they always told us that they want to make sure that we did not mock the Temptations. They wanted to make sure that we were able to cross over to a newer generation. So our choreography in the show is new and old. So it's fun to play around with those dynamics, to bring in the current, and also to make sure that the old is there as well. Because they knew that if we just did the smaller Temptations choreography on that Broadway stage, it could kind of get washed out. So they made it bigger. So we slide across the stage and flying through the sky and stuff like that. So it's interesting to the eye now, because now it's a whole different thing of performing versus what it was then. If you watch any award shows from back then, it's completely different from now. Or any live performances from back then, completely different from now. But what they did then worked then and now. But we're doing so much now to try to like, hey, look, we're flying through the sky. I'm singing and coming down. So we are doing so much versus those amazing artists who were just finessed their craft and were able to just sing on stage and move around freely and smoothly. We just unfortunately can't be as smooth and cool as they were. So we can try our best to be our cool now, Yeah.
A couple of years ago, I saw the Temptations and Four Tops, and the Four Tops did kind of what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Duke Fakir was, in the band, and I don't think it was his nephew was the MD. One of the original members was the MD. Okay. And they took the music and they updated the music a little bit. Yeah. To make it a little bit more contemporary. It was so great. Yeah. It was really, really great.
Yeah. See, I'm always scared of the music changing because I'm such an old head. I love the feel of old school music versus the newer version. Mm-hmm. But sometimes there is a time where you will hear like a remix of a song. And I'm like, ooh, okay. But I'm such an old head. When it comes to the sound, I'm like, give me the sound.
Well, that's a beautiful thing. It was still the Four Tops being the Four Tops. Yeah. But the chords were just a little bit more, interesting.
Yeah,
they just added a little bit.
Versus just the ding. Yeah.
He did a great job.
Yeah, that's good, man. Yeah. That's really good.
So I want to ask you, when you're performing these tunes, mm-hmm. do you ever reach the point where you say, where you get, I don't even have to think about it anymore. I can now just be it. Like, how long into the performance can you go before you can let all the intellect of it go?
It's tough sometimes, depending on what kind of show it is. For Motown, when I had to be Billy Gordon and sing "Do You Love Me," it was more freedom when I got on stage, because singing it in the practice room over the music director's head, I felt like I had to hold back because I couldn't move around to help project that sound, because he was such a big brassy singer, and so much energy was in his voice that being contained in a little small space like a practice room with the MD, it was tough. But getting on stage and being able to let loose and go free, I feel like I was able to do that immediately because of how brassy and big he had to be. But with Shout, I had to be smart because I wanted to give the sound that Ronald Isley gave back in the day. But I had to also remember, you have to do this show 8 times a week. You have to make sure that you're able to sustain this, and you have auditions outside of this show. So you have to be smart about it. So it's hard to release it in that aspect, but there's definitely freedom in the song for sure. There's the whole middle section. I just go. I have a good time with it because I know that's we sit in the pocket in that mid section, so I have the time to have that freedom in that. So you have to be smart at all times. Like a professional tennis player will have to be smart. You can't just go out there and like fling your arms anywhere. So when I do it, I have to make sure that I'm smart and able to have longevity after this. But I'm a go balls to the wall type performer. So it's hard to be like, okay, hey, pull it back, Jarvis. Give this much. Give your all today, but know that you have to give your all again tomorrow, or sometimes later on today. So It's a journey.
With your performing, you're obviously pretty passionate about it.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't even touched yet on your photography.
Hey.
I mean, you're an amazing photographer.
Hey, thank you, man.
And obviously very passionate about that. When did that develop? And how did that develop?
As a kid, I always loved to be behind the camera. And at first it was the disposable camera for me. But I would always take all these pictures and then like give them to my mom and dad to get them developed. And to this day, there's like a big bag at home in Louisiana that never has been developed. So I started off doing photography in that aspect. And then I had one of my mom and dad's friends from Amway from back in the day brought over a camera. He gave it to me and said, all you need to do is get some film from your parents. And I said, oh, great. That camera was sold at a garage sale. So then as I got older, I was like, okay, I want to be a photographer. So I was on the cruise ship working on Carnival, and I had all this money. And I was like, okay, so I'll get all of my money in this big black trash bag. And when we get off, I'll go over here and I'll buy a camera. So I got out there, I bought my camera, and I was seeing so many beautiful things on the ship that it was just so easy to just pick up a camera and just take pictures of seagulls flying through the sky or just sand and people on the beach. So it was fun. But then I started to get serious about it because people were like, hey, take my pictures. And I was like, okay, I'll do this. But then I would look back and be like, these are terrible. So I got serious by like studying it and reading books. And on the cruise ship, a lot of people don't know, but you have small colleges on the ship. So I used to love learning. So I went to the college and I was like, what do y'all have for photography? And they gave me this big book of things that I could learn for photography and different classes and courses online that I can come into the studio and take classes from them. So I got serious on the ship, but it wasn't until I returned to the city, I think, that I actually picked it up again and was like, I'm going to start actually making money from doing this. And I just love being behind the lens and capturing things. I love shooting with families because I think those are the things that people go back to and remember. I shot with my niece, and those are some of my favorite pictures to look at. Shooting with my pregnant sister and my brother-in-law outside in California. It was nature, and it was my future niece coming. So that was the most fun because that was me helping the family make moments that they will keep for the rest of their lives. And then I shot with one of my coworkers who was over the hair department, and she was pregnant with their first child, and they were trying for years. And she had to do, was it intravenous? What is it called?
Yeah.
They had to go
IVF.
Yes. So she went through a major course. So when she was actually finally pregnant, she was so happy, and they were so happy and free.
Aww.
And so to take those pictures, it meant a whole lot. So that's my favorite style of photography to do, but nobody seems to want to get pregnant from that. But after the pandemic, I was ready with my camera, ready to go.
Listen, with this pandemic, you're going to figure like 8 or 9 months from now, there's going to be a lot of pregnant women, a lot of women giving birth.
Oh, for sure. One of my good friends actually posted online. She said, hey guys, I have a baby that will be due in November. She was like, do the math. We were like, aha. So,
It's like when, people during the baby boom era, Same idea.
Yeah.
Yep. Same
the babies
idea.
are about to be here, and I'm ready to take the pictures.
That's exactly right. Very cool. So I guess you said that your favorite to shoot is people, right?
Yes, real people.
Yes,
Like,
real people.
I love shooting
Fantastic.
with models. That's fun. That's easy. But I love working with people who are like, oh no, I don't know. And then all of a sudden something like switches on and they have the best photo shoot ever. I love doing that. I love it. Yeah.
So basically, in your blood is just artistry. You've got everything is, you've got the photography, then you've got the vocals, and you've got the acting, and you've got the dancing. That's just awesome.
Thank you for that. I feel like there's so many people in my family that did not go after it because it was not a thing they could do. So
they
now,
thought they couldn't do it, but
right?
they
They're
could
like,
do
what?
it.
You can't make money from that. But
That's
now I was the first person, I think, on both sides of my family that decided to kind of like change the mold. And ever since I kind of did my own thing, I did notice that a lot of my cousins come behind me or like majoring in music business or
Awesome.
Like those kind of things. And I've been like, yeah, you're not saying it, but I know it was me that inspired you to go after this thing. So that's been the cool thing, just to like do what I love to do. Because I grew up working all the time, and I love working too. I love helping people, but I love creating. I feel like that's where I get more of my love from, creating and working with the kids. I love working with kids too. That's another thing. So I just make sure that I do things that are fulfilling for me in the long run versus just working to die. That's
great. That's awesome. Did you ever consider being a recording artist, or do you prefer to be more in the theater world?
Actually, the recording artist is definitely a love of mine. Like that idea. My first experience doing Sugarfoot, it was so much going on. And I shot a music video because one of my friends was like, "You should shoot a video," and I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." That the love of creating your own stuff and creating your own lane has been a joy. In California, 2018, I made a random post online like, "Hey, I'm looking for a band. Can y'all help me put together a band?" And people sent me random people's information. We came together with this amazing band of about 11 people, including background singers. And one of my friends was like, "Hey, don't worry about paying for a studio. I have a studio at my home. Come join." And I'm like, "Okay, we'll come over there," because she was a drummer for us. She didn't tell us how big the studio was. So we got in a small space, but to be in that small space with these people who were there to create on my behalf was one of the most fulfilling things ever. And nobody was complaining. People were sweating. I had a trumpet player in the hallway playing with just his bell in the room. It was so much love. We had the trombonist in the side hitting people with his, but it was so much joy. It was so many smells in the room, and all the band was so excited that I fed them real food. They were like, "Yo, you got to understand, you're paying us and you're feeding us out of your pocket. That doesn't happen." So I was like, "Man, thank you." Because I know to be an unknown artist and working with these great musicians it was a gift. And it wasn't until afterwards that people were hitting me up like, "Hey, just so you know, you had John Legend's guitar player in your room. Hey, just so you know, you had a Grammy-nominated trombonist in your room who recorded with Chance the Rapper. The drummer played for," and they were listing all these people, and I had no idea.
Wow.
These people were just in there having a good time, vibing, and they were like, "Let's go on tour afterwards." And I was like, "I got to go to back to New York to do this little Broadway show." And they were like, "God," because they were so excited, which as an independent artist to have musicians that are excited about your work is great. So I'm excited to kind of like create and see where it goes. So we shall see. We shall see.
Now, speaking of we shall see, if I had to size you up, Jarvis, I think you're a guy who, correct me if I'm wrong, likes challenges.
Yes.
You like it. You like a challenge. You like climbing up a hill. You like something that's going to be difficult. You must have, and you're like conquering it. You must have seen someone out there and said, "In that show, I'm going to play that character. You got to throw me some names. Who do you think you can take on?"
So when I saw Motown, I said, "I want that role." The guy he played Billy Gordon, he played Jackie Wilson, and he also played Rick James. Those are all people who I love. I love all of those people. So every time he came on stage, I stood up and I was like, "What the hell? how can I get his job? But he made it look so hard. Watching, there's so many artists that I watch where I'm like, oh, I wish I can get up there with your band. Sharon Jones, rest her soul. I used to love listening to her with the Dap Kings. I'm like, hey, if you ever need somebody to just come sing in your place, let me know. But to have that band and that sound is just a beautiful thing. And then to watch people from back in the day, if I could have Prince's talent and his skill, I'm like, give it here. If I could have all of Earth, Wind, and Fire's talent, give me all your talents and let me go and do everything you've ever done. So I love listening to people like that. Tina Turner, I'm like, let me be Ike and learn how to play the bass properly and not hit you. Like, we can make all this great music. So there's so many people who I've watched and been like, ooh, I wish I could, or I wish I would have been there. Broadway, to tell you the truth, I don't know much about the Broadway scene like that. I know that there have been people that I've watched over the years and I've loved. The Dreamgirls original cast, there's a bootleg on YouTube of the original cast. And to hear those people sing the way they were singing every night, like that kind of a thing has been. And actually, our show is in the original Dreamgirls house, Broadway house. So we're there, like with all that Jennifer Holiday energy in the building still. So that's that pressure. But there's so many artists that I look at it, I'm like, hey, let me just borrow your shoes for the day. And let me just do it for a while.
Would you welcome a contemporary artist? Like if someone came to you and said, even though he's still performing a Bruno Mars show, would you welcome someone contemporary?
Hell yeah.
Why did I ask?
Yeah. Now, see, with Bruno Mars, too, I think he was not one of the first, but he has been able to reach back to the old school funk sound and then still make it fun for people to listen to and make it big on the mainstream realm, which is not a thing that a lot of people can do because funk is not even listed on, or it wasn't listed on iTunes at one point. It wasn't a genre listed. And I was like, how is this not a genre that's listed on iTunes? Like, how is that possible? They're like, it's under R&B. And I was like, it's not that. Get it out of there. It should be its own thing. So to have people like Bruno Mars, who's been able to get these amazing contemporary artists and make this amazing old school sound has been pretty cool. So I would love,
and the old school entertainment. No fireworks, fireworks, simple dance.
Yeah, the microphones, old school mic and suits, and they go. And I love that. I love that idea because it's like if you can do that, then you are able to do like the big shows. And I know that you're not trying to hide. Yeah. So I think people like Bruno Mars, who has played the piano, who has sat behind the piano, who's played behind the guitar. And then he's like, look, I can also stand up and dance. And I can also write all of my stuff. And I could like that kind of artist to me is dangerous. Because I'm like, and when you can do anything, you're dangerous. You're unstoppable. Regardless if somebody doesn't like maybe one of his songs, it's like, but you can't take away the fact that that guy is an artist.
Oh, yeah.
Listen, I'm just happy you got off the cruise ship because that wouldn't be good right now.
I can imagine. One of my friends is supposed to be going back to the Philippines, and he was like, I was given a release date for March, and I was ready to go back to my family with 3 kids. And then he said, then they pushed it back to April sometime. Then they were like, okay, May. And now they pushed it all the way back to November. So he's like, look, I just want to get home. I'm not performing on the ship. I'm just here. And at first they couldn't even go in like the common areas to eat or anything. So it was a lockdown for real. But now they're able to kind of like have jam sessions and things on the ship. But the ship already is like a mentally challenging place because you don't get a lot of sun usually. Right. Because we're always like locked in our rooms for the most part. But for them to be like trapped for real now and not able to see these new random guests that come on the ship or stop at these amazing ports. And they're stuck. They're literally stuck on the ship.
I'm telling you, Jarvis, you and I are going to write a show called Lockdown. It's going to be the new show you watch.
Come on, Lockdown. Literally, man. I'm like, hey, y'all call in and talk to us with your bad Wi-Fi on these ships, man. I'm like, I can't imagine. They're going through it out there. Yeah.
Wow.
Jarvis, I want to ask you, have you ever worked or rubbed shoulders with Lisa Fisher?
No, she actually was doing a show across the street from us in New York recently, actually. Or maybe they canceled the show right before we got there. But I have not. And if she's come to see the show They didn't tell us about it.
Oh, okay.
But when I heard that woman's voice, I was like, what
Oh
is
my
that?
God. Yeah, exactly. What is that?
Ridiculous. Well, literally, what is that? And why are you not frowning when you're singing these notes?
She's superhuman.
She's superhuman. She really is. It's so easy for her. She's like, yeah, just sing that song. And she's sweet. So it seems on her interviews.
She's so nonchalant.
Yeah. Like that kind of a person. I'm like, tell me your story. Sit down and talk to me about you. Like, what is it that you've done? I found out recently a random story. My grandfather's siblings, they had a small group that they would sing. I knew they sang at different churches, but right before my aunt, who lived in New Jersey, before she passed away, she told me that they had a group that would sing on the radio every Sunday. They would sing all these different gospel songs. And one of her favorite songs was one of the songs that I had in my playlist, which I had no idea. I listened to this song all the time. I had no idea it was one of the songs that she led, but it was by the Dixie Hummingbirds, and it was called Heavenly Automobile. I think that's the name of the song. And she was like, oh yeah, that was I led the song called Heavenly Automobile. And I was like, wait, ma'am. I listened to that song faithfully. And that was one of her favorite songs, but they had a group that would sing on the radio and they never told us any of that. And I was like, how come y'all don't share these stories with us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's too bad.
Yeah. So she told me right before she told me that story. And then I think 3 weeks later, she passed away. And she was like, come on over and sit down. I'll tell you some more stories. And I was like, recorder in hand, ready to go over there. And she randomly passed, but her husband passed maybe a month or so before that. And they went everywhere together. They were locked at the hip. So when he passed on, she was acting like she was still fine. She was okay. But right after that, she passed away.
Yeah, that's what we call literally dying of a broken heart.
Right.
Literally, yeah.
She was like, I'm ready to go. And everybody knew it because we'll be sitting around talking to her. And then she'll say, Sam, I love you. Just randomly, just look at the sky and say, Sam, I love you. And I'm like, yo.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah, but we would always be in the room like what do we say now? Like, what should we say? Yeah, so.
Well, bless them both, right?
Absolutely, yeah. They're happy now. They're very happy now.
That's right. Always better together.
Absolutely.
Well, Jarvis, this has been so much fun.
Thank you all.
So much fun.
Thank you for having me. I was excited and scared at the same time, but this was fun.
Oh, nothing to be scared of. We're, we're the Upbeat hang, so we like to. Hang. That's right. We like to hang and be upbeat and have great people like you on the show. So
thank you so much for joining us.
Really,
hey, thank you for having me. Seriously.
Awesome time, Jarvis. Awesome.
When you get your next role in a film, you got to come back on.
Hey, trust me, I'll be there. And hopefully it's a good film. So then I'll be happy to come back on.
Jarvis, you're supposed to invite Duke and Amy when we premiere Lockdown. You guys come to opening night.
Y'all have to be on the carpet for sure. What's the problem? Well, let me get the check first. Let me get the check and the contract first, and then I'll call y'all and let y'all.
That's right. Yeah. But seriously, thank you so much. And hopefully you'll be back to work sooner than later. Back on Broadway. And I'm going to drag these guys to come with me to see you.
Yeah, drag them on.
Great show. Great show. So thank you. And best of luck to you in everything you do. And
stay healthy.
That's exactly
you guys too. Please stay healthy and tell your famous son I said hello and to send me that jacket of his.
I definitely will.
Man, what a talented guy. What an incredible talented guy that is.
Nice guy. What a heck of a nice guy. They don't get any nicer than him. And he would have every reason for what he talked about and all his experiences. He could easily have a chip on his shoulder. He's just a regular guy.
Totally cool, chill, down to earth.
Duke, what did you learn? Because I know you're a Temptations fan, like we said at the top. What did you learn or take out of Jarvis that impressed you the most of what he said?
I'm jealous, man. The dude is good at everything. He's good at everything. I mean, he's like, he's a great photographer, great singer. Actually, I forgot to ask him what instrument he plays. I know he plays an instrument because he was in marching band. But he's an athlete. He was going to go to college on a scholarship for track and what was the other thing? Anyway, he's an amazingly gifted athlete, and if he has some videos of him working out, and he's doing these incredibly difficult. He's hanging from a bar, and while he's hanging from the bar, he's lifting his legs straight like this over him.
Ooh, wow.
While he's hanging, and his feet are going like this, and I'm like, holy mackerel!
That's a lot of core strength. I will tell you, Amy, talking addressing it to a singer, what really impressed me is that he seems, Jarvis to me, obviously a very, very nice guy, didn't seem fazed, and I just can't imagine in doing his job, and I just can't imagine how difficult it must be to replicate an epic group, a member of an epic group from Motown, where everyone knows what they sound like, everyone knows the words, so you've got to believe that when the audience is watching you, if you make a mistake or you're not authentic about something and you start to deviate, they're going to know it. That must be incredible pressure, and the young man just seems like he could handle it. Didn't even faze him. That's the impression I got.
Yeah.
Well, I was lucky enough to actually see the show on Broadway and lucky enough to see him on Broadway. And he definitely did the justice to that character that he played. They all did. The whole cast. If you didn't know better, you would think that you were back in time and you were there with the real Temptations. Except for, I have to say, that the Broadway dancing was extravagant. It was just incredible. It really was.
If you guys haven't seen it, or our viewers or listeners haven't seen it, you also want to check Jarvis out on YouTube. He's singing with the band The Grind, and he's singing a song called Cold Blooded. And when he performs, he is completely at ease, or at least he looks it, But man, what a great singer, performer, amazing dancer. He was very humble about his dancing ability. Me being a drummer, I don't know if Ken is the same way, but I can't dance. I don't know many drummers who can, but anyway.
Well, I thought that what he did on the spot was pretty incredible. When Amy, you asked him, let's just hear a little bit. First of all, he there was no prep time. He maybe took a second to think of where he was in the song, and he did it. And not only did he do it, he did it. He really did it.
Oh yeah.
And he nailed it. And and again, that's something as I'm watching, I'm like, holy cow, that sounds just like the record. Where's the record? Is it behind there or something? No, he was terrific. He was a great guest, and I feel very fortunate we were able to talk to him. I feel very fortunate he's still not on the cruise ships as we talked about, but just a tremendous young man, and he really is a shining star for Broadway. And there's a lot of them, but he's very special. So I thought he was a very, very impressive young man.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree with you.
So having said that, folks, from the Upbeat Hang, again, Duke, Amy, we thank everyone for watching. We want you guys to please stay safe. Again, from the Upbeat Hang, we also want to thank all the first responders out there doing a great job, and that includes all the people at the grocery stores who are dealing with the public, who are bringing us all the goods, all the medical services, the mail carriers, everybody who's out there is doing a great job. We just want to say thank you to them. And as usual, Duke and Amy, we also want to point people to our social media. Please continue to enjoy it. We've had some great episodes that have come out. We have some great ones coming up. Please visit our website. Please comment. Please just tell us what you think. Tell us what you want to hear. Tell us what you liked. And reach out to us, and just please stay in touch. And, of course, as always, stay safe.
Definitely.
So for K-Boat, Duke, and Amy from the Upbeat Hang, thank you so much for watching. We hope you really enjoyed today, and we will see you in the next episode. Stay safe, everyone.